Kia ora, welcome back. I'm the Kiwi Coder, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can convert your character from a rigid body to a character controller. So you can see here the character can walk down steps, it can walk down slopes, it can jump and like shoot in the air. I think it can also like reload in the air. It can fall off ledges, and it can also like push around rigid bodies like this, like dynamic rigid bodies, and can like jump on top of them and stuff as well. Okay, so this is all done using just the native Unity's character controller, and there's various different properties that the character has that you can play with. Just give you a look at them now. Jump height, gravity, step down, air control, jump damp, ground speed, and push power. Okay, so let's get into it. So this video follows on from a previous video I've made, the weapon reloading using animation events in Unity. So in this scene, I actually want to convert this character from using a rigid body and capsule collider to a character controller. And one of the main reasons for that is so I can walk upstairs like this. So these ones sort of seem to be okay. Sometimes it does get a little bit stuck at the bottom, like there. But larger stairs it can't handle, and I think a character controller is much better for that. The other thing is, you'll notice like if I go up this ramp, the character gets like a little bit airborne at the top of it, and also when I walk down these steps, it sort of bounces down the steps rather than walking down them smoothly. So those are the main reasons for converting to a character controller, and I think you just have much more fine-grained control. It'll be a little bit more work, but it'll be, give you a lot more flexibility, I hope. Fingers crossed. So just a couple of things I want to point out is in my project settings, these are the physics settings that I'm using. So I've set the time step to 0.01 just to make it a little bit smoother. And also one other thing I noticed is when the character if you go left and right, you can see the animation sort of snapping there, and it looks pretty bad. So an easy fix for that is going into the input manager and turning snap off on the horizontal and vertical axes, and this will just mean that the input values that are fed to the animation are now blended smoothly, and the character will look much better. Okay, so yeah, with all that, let's get into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the rigid body and the capsule collider and add a character controller, and the height needs to be just pretty much the same values as what we had before, 0.8, 0.9 and 0.2 for the radius. And it actually looks okay in the scene here, but when I hit play, the character actually floats like a little bit off the ground, you can see, and that's because of this skin width. If I zero that out, it falls back to the ground, but you don't actually want to clear that, you want to leave that in there. So a better way to do it is just change these offset values. So I'm going to use make the character slightly smaller and offset it slightly higher, and that just means the character's feet should be on the ground even though the character is in the air. Sorry, the capsule is not directly on the ground. And the other thing that we need to do is just set this minimum move distance to 0. I've found that that can have some pretty weird effects on the is grounded property of the character controller. Cool. So the animator is still set to update mode normal, and if I hit play, you can see the character is really jerky now. And an easy fix you'd think would be to just set it to animate physics, which will mean the character controller is no longer being animated in update, it gets animated in fixed update, which fixes the locomotion part of the character, except what happens is the aiming portion of the character, now the aiming portion is not actually matching up with that dot anymore. And it's kind of a tricky problem I've found to solve, because the animator, it's now animating the character controller and running the animation rigging is all being controlled by this property here. So we actually want to separate those two and update the character inside fixed update like we are here, but then carry on running the animation rigging during the normal update, which will so if I just turn this laser back on, that fixes the sort of alignment here of the laser to the crosshair. So to do that, I've come up with like sort of a hacky way to do it, but it works, and I'm going to roll with it. So if you open up the character locomotion script, what we can do is just override on animator move, and in here I'm just going to create a new variable called root motion, and what I'm going to do is basically accumulate the root motion of the animator by adding the delta position. So this is a vector 3. Adding the delta position of the animator, that's basically the root motion of the animator every time the animator runs. So yeah, I'm just going to accumulate it here, and now the character won't actually move anymore if I went into play mode. So I need to actually move the character inside fixed update. So to do that, I need to get a reference to the character controller. I'm just going to call it like CC and just get that inside start. Cool. And now we can just do cc.move by that root motion amount, and after we move it, we just need to clear the root motion. So I'm just going to set that to vector3.0. And what this has effectively done is move the root motion from running inside the update mode normal, but now we've moved just the root motion portion of the animator into fixed update. So now the character controller is being moved inside fixed update, but the animator, which runs the animation rigging as well, is happening inside update. So everything basically is still happening in the same order as when we were using the rigid body. And you can see that the laser is now correctly aligning to the crosshair, and also the character is moving around smoothly. So yeah, that is a workaround I've got. If you've got a better idea, please let me know, but it seems to do for now. Actually, I'll just go back into play mode, and because we're now using a character controller, we can actually walk up the stairs, but the character doesn't fall to the ground now, and I can't jump or anything. So yeah, this is the next stage to fix. So if you just open up the character locomotion, we're going to add jumping and gravity at the same time. So just create a couple of new variables, one called the jump height and one called gravity. So this is how high the character can jump and basically how fast the character is going to fall to the ground. And we just need a couple of other variables, private ones, one for the velocity of the character and just another variable to store the state that the character is in. So I'm going to split the fixed update into two paths, one for when the character is in the air and one for when it is on the ground. So currently this is just handling when the character is on the ground. Okay, so just create one more function called jump, and what we're going to do is inside update just check if input.get key down keycodes.space, and then just call that jump function. And first of all, we just want to check that we're not already jumping, and if we're not jumping, then we can set is jumping to true. And what we'll do is just set the y velocity of the character equals to this crazy equation here, which is math.square root times gravity times jump height. And the reason for this equation is basically it lets you change the gravity without affecting how high the character actually can jump. And there's 2 times. I think what it's doing is basically differentiating like the force due to gravity or something. I think it's some kind of calculus, which just kind of meshes everything to one. Cool. So yeah, now the character will jump if I press space, but we're not actually using this velocity anywhere. So just inside update, I'm going to split this into 2. One for when the character is jumping. We want to basically reduce the y velocity by that gravity amount times time.fixed delta time, and then we can just move the character controller by integrating the velocity again, time.fixed delta time, like that. And finally, like when we're jumping, when we hit the ground, we want to set this as jumping to false. So we can just set as jumping equal to cc.isGrounded, and basically this variable will store if the character was touching the ground after the last call to this function here, move. So it's always best to check is grounded immediately after you've called cc.move. And yeah, so there we can set the is jumping to false. And for the other case, when the character is grounded, we're just going to do exactly what we were doing before. So yeah, now there's two paths. One for when the character is in the air, it's going to do all this logic. And the other one is when it's on the ground, it's just going to get the root motion from the animator, which is going to make everything look pretty smooth. So yeah, if I just press play now, I can show you how that looks. There's still a couple of extra things to do. Oh, I need to set the jump height. So if I set the jump height to like 3 and gravity to like 20, for example. Whoa, don't know what that was. Cool, so now the character can jump and then it lands on the ground. And if I, there's still a couple of issues. Like if I walk off, there's nothing to say it's jumping at this point. But if I do jump, then it will reach all the way to the ground. And yeah, the character can move and everything is good. Except if I move forward and then jump, the character just jumps like straight up into the air. And you'll also notice this weird glitching that happens when the character lands. And there's two things to fix here. The glitching is caused by, let me just come out of play mode. The glitching when I land is caused by this root motion. It's accumulating even when the character is in the air. So when the character hits the ground, I'm just going to set root motion. Basically just clear the root motion again. Set the root motion back to 0 when it hits the ground. Or just when it's in the air, I guess. Yeah, you could check if it's no longer jumping, then clear it, but I think more branches is a bit less clean. And so that will fix the glitching, and the other bit is just the character jumping straight up and down as we move. I actually want to inherit the velocity that the character had when it was walking, when we hit the jump key. So we can do that just by reading the velocity value out of the animator. And this velocity will come from the root motion inside here. So now if I go into play mode, oh, let me just set these properties again. Jump height 3, gravity 20. If I go into play mode now, and if I walk forward, you can now see, it's kind of easier to see if you go sideways. The character inherits the velocity that it had when it was walking along the ground, and also that glitching when the character lands is no longer happening. Okay, cool. So the next bit is just making it so we can like walk down these slopes. It looks a bit silly right now. So just open back up the character locomotion script, and what we want to do is every time the character walks, takes a step forward, which is what this root motion part is doing, we also just want to step down by some amount. So the character is kind of going in this path here, like it's walking down some stairs. And I'm just going to control how much it steps down by something called like step down, just to create a new public float variable, step down. And what we can do is just add on a vector3.down times by that step down amount. And yeah, so if I just set this property, I'll just make it like the same as the step offset for the character controller. So the character controller has got the step offset 0.3. I'll just make, but it only steps upwards. It doesn't step down, which is kind of surprising. You have to implement that yourself. So the step down I'll just set to 0.3, and now this should let us just walk downstairs. So if I walk up, and yeah, now the character correctly walks down slopes, and it can also walk down these stairs as well. So that's all nice and smooth. Okay, so the next bit is just adding, there is still an issue, like if I walk off the edge here, it just like drops down immediately because it's just taking a huge step down, and the character never goes into the is jumping state, so the gravity never comes into effect. So what we need to do is just inside the character locomotion script, if we're moving along the ground, what we want to do is just check if the character is still grounded. So we can do that just using like if cc.isGrounded. So if the character was, this is the let me just put some comments here. This is like is grounded state, and then this one is like is in air state. So if the character controller is no longer grounded after we took a step, we know that we've stepped off an edge. So at this point, we want to basically do everything that we're doing in here. Set is jumping to true, so it becomes in air. That means on the next tick it will come around to this section of the loop and gravity will be applied. But before that, we want to just reset the gravity on the y-axis to 0. And then the final thing in here is just also inheriting that velocity from, I'll do that before, inheriting the velocity from the animator again. So when we walk off a slope, we kind of get some momentum going out and falling off the edge. And that should be enough to let us walk off the edge of things now. So if I just open this back up, hit play. Oh, Unity is so slow sometimes. Yay! So now the character falls off the edge. You notice there is like a small little kind of one frame glitch where the character steps down before it goes, before it starts falling, and you can actually tune this by just reducing the step down amount, so it's not as noticeable there. And I should still be able to walk down. Yeah, I can still walk down these things, so you can play with that amount there. One thing that you could do, which I'm not going to do for this tutorial, is after we step down, if we're no longer grounded, then you could actually step back up again, and that should get rid of that small little one frame glitch in here. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as is. Okay, so I think the next stage is just going to be adding some air control. Like if I go into play mode, and if I jump and then hit the keys left and right, the character can't move when it's in the air, and it feels a little bit awkward. So we'll just add that now. Okay, so we just want to add a new property here to control how much the character can move in the air. So I'm just going to create a new public float called air control, and going to create a new function here called calculate air control. And what this is going to do is, this should return a vector 3. This is going to basically return the transform.forward, so the forward vector of the character times the vertical input on the keyboard, so that's W and S on the keyboard, and add that to the horizontal input, and you can just use that using transform.right times input.x. And the result of all of that, I'm going to scale it by that air control value, so if that's 0, it'll have no effect. And one last thing is I'm just going to divide this value by 100 because I prefer working in a bit larger units. And the value I'm going to use for air control in here is 2.5. It seems to be a little bit subtle but not too strong. So yeah, the final thing is just to integrate it into this the in air state, or is jumping state. So let me just try to make this a little bit simpler to read. If I extract that section there, the gravity section, and just call this displacement equals velocity times fixed delta time, we can just pass that in there. So now what I'm going to do is just from that final displacement due to gravity, I'm going to add on this calculate air control factor. And one reason for doing it like this, rather than adding another force to the velocity, like the same way gravity is done, is I wanted the character to move linearly throughout the air. So if this, if we just have a look at this again, it's just reading from the input values, right? So say, let's just ignore the horizontal part. Let's say the character is walking forward in the air. Say this is 1. This whole equation will return the same value every time. And then that same value will get added on to the character every frame. So it won't get faster and faster the longer you hold the keyboard down. Whereas gravity, the character does get faster and faster the longer it falls. But I don't want that behavior for the air control, just because it felt a little bit weird. It would start off moving slowly in the air and then suddenly get really fast. Whereas just having this linear, I found just it was a bit better to control, in my opinion. So yeah, if we just check this out now, hit play, and if I jump, then you can see if I start moving in the air, then the character will move left and right and forwards and backwards. And yeah, that's the air control. So now if I like move along and then jump, there is still some, you can like the motion that we inherit from the root motion of the animation is now getting added on to the air control. So the character actually speeds up more than the velocity it had when it was walking along the ground. So I just want to add an extra value in here, which called like the damping amount, and we'll just damp the I'm going to call it like jump damp, and we just multiply this value by that inherited velocity anywhere that we're using it. So there and also there, and this just lets, it's just another kind of thing to play with. So if I now set the jump damp to like something like 0.5, then because we have now air control, then you can kind of tune it so the character is still walking about the same speed, but I've still got air control and it kind of just feels a little bit smoother. You can do crazy things like set the jump damp to like 3, and then you'll inherit like 3 times the motion of the character as it's walking along. But yeah, this just gives you like some extra stuff to play with. I'm just going to leave it at 0.5. Okay, for this next section I just want to clean up the scripts a little bit. So this is gotten a little bit kind of hairy to read, so I'm just going to split this code into like update in air function, and this one into a function called update on ground or something. So just if you select all that code, and then you can refactor it out using quick actions and refactorings, and just use extract method, and I'm going to call this update in air, and then just do the same for this section here, quick actions refactoring, hit enter, update on ground. And yeah, now we've got two chunks of code here, and yeah, and it's calling each of them from up here correctly. So the next bit is just refactoring out these 3 lines of code, because this stuff is happening in 2 places. One is up here and one is down here. The only difference being this y value that is set. So first I'm just going to extract this section using introduce local, and I'm going to call this like jump velocity, and move that up, and now I can extract all of these 3 lines out using another function called like set, extract method set in air, and it's actually figured out to pass in that jump velocity there. Amazing. So now I can just call this set in air function from up here and just pass in this 0 amount. Man, I love C#. The tools are so good. Much better than C++. So update in air, update on ground. Yeah, that's all good. Oh, the last thing I want to do is actually split this bit on ground into 2 factors here. So there's 2 kind of distinct things going on. One is the character is stepping forward, and then the character is stepping down. So just gonna again like extract this as a parameter called like step down amount, and then extract this as a parameter called step forward amount, and I might actually just swap those around the other way. Cool, so the character first steps forward and then steps down, which is cool. So one easy thing that we could do is actually just scale the root motion by some factor, which will let us speed up the character without changing the animation speed. So if I just go into play mode, you can kind of see if I walk forward, the character can't get any faster than what the animation is playing right now. There's no way of basically making the character kind of run or artificially run. But an easy way to do that is just by scaling this root motion amount when we take a step forward. So I'm just going to create a new property here called on ground speed, probably. Yeah, ground speed is probably a good word. So public float ground speed, And this will just be a value of like 1 for which will keep the default root motion. You can easily just set that value to 0 if you want to cancel out all the root motion, but I'll just I'll try with a value of like 3 for example and hit play. Just yeah, so now you can see the character is like moving much faster, except all of the root motion and stuff is still all being combined together with everything that we've written, which is pretty cool. Except there is still one issue, like if I jump in the middle of that, the character is still jumping at like the old speed. It's not inheriting that ground speed parameter. So there is one more place where we need to multiply out the ground speed, and that is when we set in air. We just need to basically multiply the animated velocity by that that ground speed value here. So yeah, when we inherit the velocity from the animation, we just also want to multiply by the ground speed. And now if I go into play and yeah, and jump, yeah, the character is basically inheriting the same velocity. Yeah, and I just made these hills here when I was testing, just to like check that the character wasn't kind of like falling off at high speeds, like going over the hills. It sticks to the ground like pretty well. You can kind of see, like it's not jumping up and down. It did a little bit there, but character's walking kind of ridiculously fast at the moment, so I'm kind of fine with that. So I'll just set that back to like 1.2, and the next stage is just going to be adding some like a different animation. So if I just go back into play mode, and if I jump, the character is like walking in the air. So this is like a just cosmetic thing. Obviously it looks stupid right now, but yeah, we can fix that up now. So just open up the animator on the main character. So currently there's still only one state, which is surprising, but I'm just going to add another state here called like is jumping, and for this state we just need to assign an animation. I'm going to use this one here, run forwards jump frame 1. So this comes from another one of my animations, another one of my tutorial videos, and you can find that if Unity would let me drag these windows out. Inside animations, mail, animations, aerial, jump, running, jump, and it's one of these. So I can show you what that animation looks like. It is pretty simple. It is just a character kind of idling in the air, and this is basically what I wanted for the jump. I didn't want anything kind of elaborate because we'll blend from the running state directly to the jumping state. So yeah, just having something simple like this for jumping worked for me. Depends on the type of game you're making, but yeah, there's a few other kind of animations as well, but so pick whatever one you like, but this was my favorite, so I'm going to use that one. So the next thing to do is just create these transitions from the locomotion state to the jumping state. So I'm going to create a new animation parameter called is jumping, and create a transition from the locomotion state and another transition back from the is jumping state. So this one here, just deselect has exit time, because this transition should not happen automatically. It should only happen on a condition, and I'm going to set the transition duration to 0.1. I want it to blend fairly quickly from the running state to the jumping state. And the condition, I'm just going to set that is jumping to true, and then basically just do the reverse for going back the other way from is jumping to locomotion. Deselect has exit time, so it doesn't happen automatically. Set the transition duration to 1 and add a condition of is jumping, but this time it's going to be false. Cool. And the last thing is actually just setting this this boolean parameter from the code. So the first place to do that is in the set in air function. So here we can just go, animator.setBool is jumping, and here we just set it to true, and then so that will happen both when we jump and also when we start falling. So yeah, that's good. And the other place we just need to set it to false is when we land. So that's obviously going to be when we're in the air. We can just set is jumping to this value here, and that's been read from is grounded. So yeah, all of that will work. Cool. So if I go back into the scene after Unity loads, hit play, then what has happened to my window? That's a bit weird. Yay! Now the character goes into like a really simple jump animation. And I can jump with a weapon, which is pretty cool. And the even cooler thing is I can host my weapon mid-air, which I just reckon looks so badass. Looks awesome. And I can also like shoot and stuff in the air. It's pretty cool. It's like all of this stuff just kind of came together. Didn't really have to do anything for all of that to work, which I'm quite impressed about. It's all to do with animation rigging, I think. So yeah, the final thing to do is I can't actually run into these blocks because yeah, this sort of I would normally be able to push these blocks around like I can shoot them when you're using a rigid body and a capsule collider, but with a character controller, again, you've got to program that behavior yourself. So yeah, you don't really get it for free. But luckily, Unity has a solution for me. Sorry, that was real lame. And I'll put a link to this page in the description. Oh yeah, I've been checking out videos by this guy, Sebastian Legue. His stuff is like amazing. Really highly recommend all his videos. So massive shout out to him. Yeah, he's got some pretty awesome videos. Definitely check out his page if you haven't seen it. So yeah, the address is going to be on controller collider hit. Yeah, this function here is basically what we want to copy. Yeah, I'll put a link in the description for this page. This function here is what we want to copy and paste that into just the bottom of the character locomotion. The only thing is I forgot to paste the push power, so I'll just create that quickly here. Public float push power. And if I set push power to 2 and hit play, now when I jump into these things, yay, I can like push the blocks around and stuff, which is cool. Sweet, yeah, so that's it for this tutorial. If you've made it to the end, again, really appreciate you watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, just hit subscribe, and if you like the video, hit like. Really appreciate it if you share it with your friends and stuff. There'll be more videos coming soon. Let me know in the description, or the comments, sorry, what kind of videos you'd like to see. Got all sorts of things on my mind. Yeah, so we'll see you again soon. Ka kite.